Now, now here's an interesting one I've noticed with psychopaths. This sort of like imbecile behaviour, incompetence, coupled with a sense of self-righteous arrogance, because they think they're like some kind of visionary or genius, or they think they're some kind of intellectual based on something somebody else wrote, and they just actually, all they do is repeat it. They haven't actually thought about both sides of an issue. They haven't actually thought about it in any kind of real way. They'll just pontificate in a very arrogant and self-righteous manner to talk down to you about an issue that, especially if it has some kind of moral subtext, that it just makes them feel clever, it just makes them feel, and they love that. That's very common with psychopaths, and this is part of a wider issue of their lack of sort of, if you take away their deviousness, a lot of them are actually most of them are very, very like stupid and incompetent. I'll give you an example of a psychopath. I've actually encountered this actual scenario, this phenomenon with a couple of psychopaths. But they're useless at making documents. They're useless at formatting documents. They can't, or any kind of schematic or drawing that requires a layout or a plan for construction or design. They're just terrible. You cannot believe how bad they are. One psychopath I had working for me at one time, I hired him to do some work for me, and he had to measure out a floor plan of a building. And it was pretty straightforward enough. He had to measure out the floor plan of the building, do a simple drawing, calculate the square footage, and then give me an estimate based on the work that needed to be done and the materials. Basic stuff. This was coming from someone who claimed to be a hotshot construction and engineer. So the guy writes out the document and hands it back to me. And it was written in apart from the fact that it just looked strange. What should have been just simple boxes weren't. There was all these kinds of elaborations surrounding it. And what was incredible was that the measurements were a mixture of imperial and metric. For instance, like if there was a measurement along a wall, it would be 14 feet, 6 inches and 9 centimetres, or 22 feet, 18 centimetres and 2.5 inches. I'm not kidding you. Or 14 and a half centimetres. Just bizarre. And this person turned out to be an unbelievable psychopath and a con artist. So they're terrible with formatting documents. They're terrible with processing a sort of a cognitive advancement through a project or through a stage. The only tests they can seem to pass are multiple choice, where they check off the boxes, and chances are they've snuck the paper from the previous person who took the test before to them. They haven't actually properly studied for it, because a lot of them can't study. They're just not that. They usually get their qualifications by default. That's if they actually do qualify, but most of them don't. They may do a couple of years here and there and spend the rest of their lives acting like they're like the greatest expert on that subject. So that's something to be aware of with psychopaths. They're really this sort of imbecile mindset coupled with self-righteous arrogance, that they're sort of so clever and you're not, and yet you may be far more intelligent than them, but because they can repeat usually something in a dogmatic way, that you will find them out. You will notice that. Anyone who's dealt with a psychopath through the workplace will tell you that they're completely incompetent, or anyone who's dealt with them in education, that they cannot achieve anything in a straightforward cognitive way. It's almost like they exist within their own world, and they do, because ultimately they think that no other opinion on earth matters except theirs. So remember that one. That's a good one too. They're just useless when it comes to measurements, documents, plans, and schematics. One of the old-fashioned terms for a psychopath was a moral imbecile. I think they're basically, most of them, 90% of them are imbeciles in every way, except them being devious and repeating what other people have written or said. They come up with nothing original themselves except how to scam somebody. Okay,